Hi, my name is Andrew Walkley. I'm the project manager for the GRIP team. That stands for Global Requirements Implementation Project Team. Myself, along with Kathy Stafford, Ruby McNeely, Jesse Booker, and Eleanor Granville, have done a post-mortem report for the Cisco Systems ERP implementation. The purpose of this report is to review the processes that took place throughout the Cisco ERP implementation so that future project teams might be able to learn from the obstacles that this project faced. We will review in detail the activities that led to the successful implementation of Oracle within Cisco and discuss the problems that arose throughout the project that could have been avoided. This report will identify best project practices, problem areas, and provide suggestions for improvement on future projects. Some of the goals of this report will aim to review and validate the deliverables and success of the ERP implementation, identify project highlights and accomplishments for future projects, identify problem areas and how problems were dealt with, and outline key lessons learned from the project to apply to future projects. Let's start out with the project overview. The problem. In 1993, Cisco was using a Unix-based software package to support its core transaction processing. This package supported the financial, manufacturing, and order entry systems. Cisco was by far the biggest customer of the software vendor that supported this package. Pete Solvik, the CIO, knew based on experience and on the company's growth prospects that the current system would not be able to support the company much longer. He knew that they would have to take action, but wanted to avoid implementing an ERP solution because of the types of mega projects that ERP implementations often became. Instead, he planned to let each functional area make its own decision regarding the application and timing of its move. But each area would be required to use common architecture and databases. In the following year, no decisions were made because none of the department heads wanted to go out and buy a software package. They didn't feel that they could go to the board and justify spending $5 or $6 million on a package that would take a year or more to get in place. Because no changes were made and the old system was beginning to fail, fixes had to be made to make the old system continue to work. System outages became routine, and the product shortcomings made the outages harder to recover from. In January of 1994, the system failed so dramatically that the company was largely shut down for 2 days, and the issue could no longer be ignored. The solution. Because the system was on the brink of total failure, the company could not afford to wait for each department to make a decision. Solvik, Randy Pond, and Carl Redfield all began to realize that they would have to implement an ERP solution, and quickly. They decided that they would not do a phased implementation, and that they would do it all at once. They also were not going to allow for there to be a lot of customization. They wanted to create a schedule that was doable and make the project a priority within the company. Cisco's management team brought KPMG on board to assist in the selection and implementation of whichever solution the company chose. With KPMG on board, they began researching potential software packages. After 2 days, they had it narrowed down to 5 packages. After evaluating the packages at a high level for a week, the team decided on 2 prime candidates. After sending out RFPs to both vendors, they had the vendors come in for a demonstration. Cisco provided sample data while the vendors demonstrated how key requirements were met or not met by their software. After reviewing all of the information presented by the vendors, Cisco decided on Oracle. The decision was based on 3 major factors. First, Oracle had a better manufacturing capability than the other vendor. Second, they made a number of promises regarding the long-term support of the package. The third major factor was that Oracle was close by, which offered a lot of flexibility. Now that the decision had been made to go with Oracle, the team had to work on the budget and timeline for the project completion to present to the executive board. The budget for the project was estimated at $15 million, and the target date to go live was set for January 1st, 1995, which gave them 9 months. The reason for going live at the beginning of the third quarter was to be able to work out all of the bugs by the start of the fourth quarter, which was their auditing period. They were very nervous about going to the board requesting approval to proceed with the ERP implementation. After they got past the shock of the $15 million price tag, the board approved the project and made it a priority for the company in the coming year. It emerged as one of the top 7 goals for the company for the year. Next, the implementation team of around 100 people was put together. The team was a cross-section of Cisco's business community, along with people from KPMG and Oracle. The team members were placed on one of 5 tracks. The tracks were managed from a project management office, which included Cisco project manager Tom Herbert and Mark Lee, the KPMG project manager. And sitting atop the entire project was the Executive Steering Committee. Implementation. The team's strategy employed a technique called rapid iterative prototyping, which broke the implementation into a series of phases called conference room pilots, or CRPs. The purpose of each CRP was to build on the previous work. CRP 0 started with getting the implementation team up to speed by putting them all through 2 days of training on the Oracle applications. After everyone knew how the system was going to work, they began working on the system requirements and how the system should be configured. One of the biggest things that came out of CRP 0 was the fact that they would not be able to stick to one of the early goals of avoiding modification to the ERP software. The goals of CRP 1 were to build on the first phase and for each track to make the system work within their specific area. They were still trying to limit modification to the ERP software. They began to categorize the processes that the system would not support and examine each one individually to determine what changes would need to be made. These changes affected the project plan as well as the project budget. They also determined that Oracle could not adequately support the after-sales needs of the company. Because of this, they had to select a support package to be implemented alongside Oracle. During CRP2, they accepted that the project scope would have to be expanded to allow for modification to be made to the software. They also decided to tackle another large technical problem and utilize a data warehouse to allow all of the applications to access a single source for information. By the end of CRP2, the first round of modifications was in place and testing was starting to take place. The main focus of CRP3 was fully testing the entire system and assessing the readiness of the system to go live. The entire system was tested with a full day's worth of business data and performed to the satisfaction of the entire team. At the end of CRP3, the entire team agreed that the system was ready to be turned on. Now it was time for the moment of truth. The switch was flipped and the new system went live. It did not start off as everyone had hoped that it would. The system turned out to be very unstable, and the system went down about once a day on average. The primary problem was found to be the hardware architecture and sizing. Fortunately for Cisco, the contract they had with their hardware vendor promised them a capability instead of just a hardware configuration. Because of this contract, the hardware vendor was responsible for all of the costs to fix the hardware performance issues. The second problem was that the system could not process the amount of data that the company required. This exacerbated the hardware problem by inefficiently processing common tasks. The problem boiled down to the fact that the system was tested with a small database running individual processes. When the system was processing the full Cisco database, it was crashing when given large amounts of data and performing multiple processes at the same time. It took about 2 months to sort out all of the hardware and software problems. Though the problems that arose when Oracle went live were serious and caused significant delays in business processes, the problems proved to be short-lived. Over the course of 3 months following the switch, Cisco and its vendors working together stabilized and added capacity to the system. After the system was stabilized, the feeling was that the new system would be able to accommodate the growth that the company was expecting. Project performance and key accomplishments. Some of the key accomplishments were partner selection. They chose a good integration partner with KPMG that saw the project as an opportunity to showcase their skills and knowledge in the business of ERP implementation. They used their best and most seasoned employees for this project. Another key accomplishment was software selection. They did lots of research and asked the user community for references to determine what other companies were using and if it was working. They also did site visits to other companies to see the software packages in action. They also received a lot of executive support. The Executive Steering Committee was made up of the most high-level executives from Cisco, Oracle, and KPMG, which helped to ensure the project's success. Cisco management made it clear to the whole company that this ERP project was a top priority. After the new system went live, they experienced many difficulties, almost daily system crashes. Because of the extensive involvement of the software and hardware vendors, the problems were short-lived, and within 2 months the major issues had been resolved and the system was stabilized. One of the major problems was waiting. While not directly related to the project itself, the company should have taken action before the old system became completely unstable. They knew that something had to be done, and everyone just stood by and waited for someone else to take action. This is the reason that the project timeline was so short, and perhaps the reason for some of the problems that the project team faced. Another problem was customization. This was the first major implementation of a new release of the Oracle ERP product. They were under the false belief that they would be able to avoid modifying the software package. Unfortunately, there were many business processes that the software could not support, and they had to take action quickly in order to keep the project on schedule. The package also did not support the after-sales needs of the company, and as a result, they were forced to select and implement a service support package alongside the Oracle implementation to support the after-sales needs. Probably one of the biggest failures to the plan was regarding the amount of data and the way it was processed during the final testing of the system. The system was tested using a small database running individual process commands. When all processes were running together over a fully converted database, the system could not process the required load. Risk management. One of the major risks was going over schedule. The risk of going over schedule was a fairly major concern due to the fact that they were trying to integrate the system during the third quarter and could not afford to run into the fourth quarter and have major technical problems during the auditing period. Fortunately, this risk was mitigated by keeping the project on schedule. Another risk was scope creep. This really became a problem when it was realized that the system could not be used without modification. The implementation team mitigated this problem by bringing 30 developers in for 3 months to modify Oracle to support the business. Another risk was selecting the wrong package. There was a significant risk of selecting a software package that could not support the rapid growth that the company was experiencing or support all of the business areas that Cisco needed it to. To manage this risk, about 20 people from Cisco and KPMG researched multiple software packages and identified Oracle as the company that could support them for years to come. The budget was also a risk. The project was estimated to cost $15 million, which made it the single largest capital project that the company had ever approved. They justified this expense to the executive board by emphasizing the fact that they had no choice but to take action due to the condition of the current system. They also explained that they would be institutionalizing a business model for the company. Some of the key lessons learned throughout this project were project initiation. While no one within a business wants to spend money to replace something that is still functional, it is important to recognize when you need to stop applying bandages and come up with a long-term solution. Another thing to take away from this project is the team selection aspect. Cisco's management team realized early on that for the project to be a success, this could not be an IT-only initiative. It would require the best people from within the company to work as a team. The team members were handpicked and saw it as a great career-building opportunity. Another lesson would be about the customization. From the start of the project, one of the main goals was to avoid modifying the package. The project team should have been a little more open to modifying the system from the start so that they could identify the changes that would need to be made earlier in the process. Testing is one of the biggest lessons that we should take away from this project. The failure of the project team to do extensive testing with a large database made for a very rough start to the initial startup of Oracle. They found that the system could not handle the entire Cisco database while processing all of the commands that the company ran on an average business day. This should be a lesson to test the system in the same way that the system will be used in the business environment. Some of the things that we would like to ask the Cisco project team if we were given the opportunity would be, what factors contribute to choosing an enterprise resource system? What type of analysis helped decide whether to use outside vendors or internal resources to develop and manage an IT system? What security measures are lawfully required and taken to protect the company's network information? What are some backup options and recommendations offered to Cisco clients? Do you think that this software was a good investment for the company in the long run? What will happen if an upgrade is needed in the next year, and how would it affect the bottom line growth/costs? Was the scope clearly defined to prevent scope creep? What will you do differently on future projects based on what you've learned in this project? Was communication between groups handled efficiently and effectively? Was program management effective in disseminating information? Was program management effective in resolving issues? Was communication with the external vendors effective? Were the status meetings effective? This concludes our post-mortem report on the Cisco ERP implementation. Thank you for your attention.